Welcome, dear friends, to this profound exploration of one of life's most universal experiences, aging. Today, we delve deep into the Buddha's timeless wisdom on growing older, discovering how ancient teachings illuminate the path to aging with grace, dignity, and awakening. The Buddha did not shy away from the reality of aging. In fact, the very catalyst for his spiritual journey began when he encountered an elderly person for the first time. This encounter shook him to his core and set him on the path toward enlightenment. What did the Buddha discover about old age? What wisdom did he offer to help us navigate the challenges and opportunities that come with growing older? In this comprehensive teaching, we will explore the Buddha's profound insights on aging, examining how we can transform the autumn and winter of our lives into seasons of deep wisdom, peace, and spiritual fulfillment. We will discover that old age, far from being merely a decline, can be the most spiritually fruitful period of our existence. Let us begin this sacred journey together. To understand what the Buddha taught about old age, we must first understand how aging itself awakened the Buddha to the human condition. The story is well known, but bears repeating, for it contains layers of meaning we often overlook. Prince Siddhartha Gautama lived in luxury, sheltered within palace walls by his father, who desperately wanted to protect his son from the harsh realities of life. The king had been warned by prophecy that his son would become either a great king or a great spiritual teacher, and he was determined to ensure the former by keeping suffering at bay. But the gods, in their compassion, arranged for Siddhartha to encounter what are known as the 4 sights during his chariot rides outside the palace walls. The first of these sights was an elderly person, bent with age, wrinkled, trembling, supported by a staff, having lost the vitality and beauty of youth. The texts tell us that Siddhartha was deeply shaken. He asked his charioteer, "What has happened to this person?" And when told that this was the natural fate of all human beings, that old age comes to everyone who lives long enough, the prince was profoundly disturbed. For the first time, he understood that his own youth, health, and vitality were temporary gifts, not permanent possessions. This encounter was not merely shocking because of its novelty. It was transformative because Siddhartha recognized himself in that elderly person. He understood what Buddhists call appropriate attention, the ability to see beyond surface appearances to the universal truth beneath. He didn't think, "How unfortunate for that old person." He thought, "This is my future. This will happen to me. Age is the law of life for all who are born." This recognition sparked what we might call existential anxiety, a healthy, necessary anxiety that motivated his spiritual search. He realized that merely enjoying youth while it lasted was no solution, because aging was inevitable. He couldn't avoid it through wealth, power, or pleasure. The only real solution was to understand the nature of existence itself deeply enough to transcend the suffering that comes with impermanence. After his enlightenment, the Buddha taught that this awareness of aging, along with sickness and death, is actually a blessing. He called these realities divine messengers, or heavenly messengers, because they wake us up from the sleep of complacency. They remind us that life is precious, that time is limited, and that we must use our days wisely. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha teaches about these messengers explicitly. He says that when we ignore the message of aging, sickness, and death, when we see elderly people but think, "That won't happen to me," or when we witness it and don't change our lives accordingly, we are squandering the precious human birth we've been given. The Buddha's first teaching about aging, then, is this: awareness of aging is a call to awakening. It is not something to deny, fear, or avoid in our thoughts. It is a profound teacher, showing us the impermanent nature of all conditioned things and motivating us to seek what is unconditioned, eternal, and beyond birth and death. Many people in modern society treat aging as something shameful, something to hide, something to fight against with all possible means. Billions are spent on anti-aging treatments, cosmetics, and procedures designed to maintain the appearance of youth. While there's nothing wrong with taking care of our bodies and appearance, the Buddha would ask us to examine the motivation behind these actions. Are we caring for our bodies with wisdom and moderation, or are we desperately denying the truth of impermanence? The Buddha taught that true freedom comes not from clinging to youth, but from understanding and accepting the nature of existence. When we deeply accept that aging is natural, inevitable, and universal, we free ourselves from a tremendous amount of suffering. We stop fighting reality and begin working with it wisely. This doesn't mean resignation or giving up on life. Rather, it means channeling our energy towards what truly matters, cultivating wisdom, compassion, ethical conduct, and inner peace. These qualities don't diminish with age. In fact, they often deepen and mature as we grow older, if we approach aging with the right understanding.
Part 2. Aging as Impermanence Manifest. The Buddha's core teaching on impermanence, anicca, finds its most visible expression in the aging process. Every moment of our lives we are aging. Cells die and regenerate. The body constantly changes, but these changes become undeniable as decades pass. In the Rohita Sutta, the Buddha teaches that impermanence is not merely a philosophical concept, but a lived reality we can observe in our own bodies. The wrinkles that appear, the gray hair, the reduced stamina, the need for reading glasses, all these are not problems to be solved, but truths to be understood. The Buddha taught three characteristics of existence: impermanence, anicca, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. Aging illuminates all three characteristics with particular clarity. First, impermanence. Our bodies demonstrate constant change. The face we see in the mirror today is not the face we saw 20 years ago. The physical capabilities we possessed in youth gradually transform. Some practitioners use this awareness as a meditation object, contemplating how the body changes day by day, year by year, decade by decade. This contemplation doesn't lead to depression when done correctly. Instead, it leads to appreciation for the present moment and detachment from clinging. The Buddha encouraged his disciples to reflect regularly on aging. In the Abhaya Sutta, he teaches 5 remembrances that every person should contemplate daily. I am subject to aging, I have not gone beyond aging. I am subject to illness, I have not gone beyond illness. I am subject to death, I have not gone beyond death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are subject to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. These contemplations might seem morbid to those unfamiliar with Buddhist practice, but they serve a crucial purpose. They cure us of the delusion of permanence. They help us prioritize what matters. They inspire us to practice diligently while we still have the capacity. Second, dukkha or unsatisfactoriness. The Buddha never taught that aging itself is suffering. Rather, he taught that clinging to youth, resisting aging, and fearing the changes that come with time, these create suffering. The aging process itself is neutral. Our relationship to it determines whether we suffer. Consider 2 elderly people. One has spent their life clinging to youth, defining their worth by physical appearance and capability. As their body changes, they experience profound grief and loss. They may become bitter, depressed, or anxious. The other has cultivated inner qualities, wisdom, kindness, equanimity. They've developed a sense of identity not based on the changing body, but on their timeless awareness and ethical conduct. As their body ages, they remain peaceful, even joyful. They've learned to let go gracefully. The difference is not in the external circumstances, but in the internal relationship to those circumstances. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching on suffering. It arises from craving and clinging, not from the circumstances themselves. Third, anatta, or non-self. Ajin powerfully demonstrates that we are not our bodies. The body we inhabited at age 5 is radically different from the body at age 50 or 75. If we were truly identical to our bodies, we would have ceased to exist long ago, replaced by different beings. Yet consciousness persists through all these changes. The Buddha taught that identification with the body as me or mine is a fundamental misunderstanding. The body is more accurately understood as a process, a phenomenon that arises due to conditions and changes according to natural laws. When we deeply understand this, aging loses its sting. We see it as a natural process occurring in nature, not as something happening to a permanent self. In the Kaya-gata-sati Sutta, the Buddha teaches mindfulness of the body, encouraging practitioners to observe the body's 32 parts, its elements, and its inevitable decay. This practice isn't meant to create disgust or nihilism. Rather, it cultivates healthy detachment and wisdom. We learn to care for the body without being enslaved by it, to appreciate it without defining ourselves by it. Many meditation masters have noted that older practitioners often progress more quickly in meditation than younger ones, precisely because the truth of impermanence is so evident in their direct experience. They don't need to imagine impermanence or take it on faith. They see it in the mirror, feel it in their joints, notice it in their energy levels. This direct knowing can catalyze profound insight if met with mindful awareness rather than denial or despair. The Buddha also taught that contemplating aging helps us develop compassion. When we truly understand that everyone ages, that the beautiful young person will one day be elderly, that the strong will become frail, we develop empathy and kindness. We stop judging people based on age or appearance. We recognize the shared human condition. Furthermore, awareness of aging helps us appreciate the preciousness of each stage of life. The Buddha didn't teach that we should wish to be old when young or young when old. Rather, he taught us to be fully present for whatever stage we're in, knowing it will pass. This awareness brings a bittersweet appreciation that deepens our experience of life. In the Samyutta Nikaya, there's a beautiful passage where the Buddha compares life stages to seasons. Just as we don't curse winter for not being summer, we shouldn't curse old age for not being youth. Each season has its gifts. Winter allows for rest, reflection, and preparation for new growth. Similarly, old age offers gifts that youth cannot provide: perspective, wisdom, freedom from many of youth's anxieties and ambitions, and the opportunity for deep spiritual practice.
Part 3. The unique spiritual opportunities of old age. Far from viewing old age as merely a decline to be endured, the Buddha taught that it offers unique spiritual opportunities unavailable in earlier life stages. Let us explore these in depth. First, old age brings natural renunciation. In youth, we're driven by biological imperatives: finding a mate, establishing security, raising children, building careers. These drives are powerful and often consume most of our attention and energy. As we age, many of these drives naturally diminish. Sexual desire often lessens. Ambition for worldly achievement may fade. The need to impress others typically decreases. From a Buddhist perspective, this natural renunciation is a tremendous gift. The Buddha taught that renunciation, letting go of compulsive craving, is essential for liberation. What young practitioners must cultivate through great effort often comes more naturally in old age. The elderly person who has lost interest in accumulating possessions, seeking status, or pursuing sensual pleasures has already accomplished much of the work of renunciation. The Buddha didn't teach that we should force ourselves to renounce things we still desire, as this creates internal conflict and suppression. Rather, he taught that true renunciation comes from seeing clearly that certain pursuits don't lead to lasting happiness. Old age provides this clarity through direct experience. We've had decades to experiment with various sources of pleasure and achievement. We've seen what satisfies and what doesn't. This experiential wisdom makes renunciation natural rather than forced. Of course, this potential gift can be squandered. Some elderly people cling desperately to fading youth, pursuing the same goals they pursued at 20 or 40, refusing to acknowledge changed circumstances. This creates immense suffering. But those who accept and work with their changing situation discover unexpected freedom. Second, old age offers the gift of perspective. When you've lived through multiple decades, you've seen trends come and go, crises arise and pass, problems that seemed catastrophic resolve themselves. This long view cultivates equanimity, the ability to remain balanced in the face of life's ups and downs. The Buddha highly valued equanimity, listing it as one of the 4 Brahma Viharas, or divine abodes, along with loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. Equanimity doesn't mean indifference. It means a wise, balanced response to life rather than reactive extremes. Old age naturally cultivates this quality if we remain aware and reflective. Older practitioners often tell stories of how situations that would have devastated them in youth barely disturb them now. This isn't because they've become hard or uncaring. Rather, they've developed wisdom about the nature of change and the relative importance of different events. They've learned that most things we worry about never happen, and the things that do happen are usually manageable. Third, old age typically brings reduced responsibilities and increased time for practice. Many elderly people have finished raising children, retired from careers, and freed themselves from many of life's demands. While this can lead to purposelessness if not approached wisely, it can also create ideal conditions for meditation, study, and spiritual development. The Buddha established the Sangha with a specific age-related structure. Young monks focused on study and service. Middle-aged monks often taught and administered. Elderly monks were revered as sources of wisdom and often spent extensive time in meditation. This reflected the Buddha's understanding that different life stages call for different emphases. In traditional Buddhist societies, old age was seen as the natural time to deepen spiritual practice. Lay people who had fulfilled family and social obligations often took more precepts, spent more time at monasteries, and devoted themselves to practice. This wasn't seen as giving up on life, but as fulfilling life's ultimate purpose. Fourth, awareness of mortality sharpens and deepens practice. The Buddha taught samvega, a word sometimes translated as urgency or spiritual shock. It's the understanding that time is limited and we must use it wisely. While the young can intellectually understand mortality, older people know it in their bones. Friends and peers are dying, health issues arise. The finish line is visible. This awareness, properly held, becomes rocket fuel for practice. It cuts through procrastination and distraction. When we truly understand that we might have only months or a few years left, suddenly meditation practice becomes the obvious priority. Petty concerns fall away. Long-held grudges seem absurd. The question, how do I want to spend my remaining time, becomes urgent and clarifying. The Buddha himself regularly contemplated death, and he encouraged his disciples to do the same. In the Maranasati Sutta, he teaches that remembrance of death, when practiced properly, leads to diligence, urgency in practice, and the letting go of harmful mental states. For older practitioners, this contemplation isn't abstract, it's immediate and personal. Fifth, old age often brings increased compassion and patience. Having experienced much suffering ourselves, we naturally empathize more with others' struggles. Having made countless mistakes, we become less judgmental of others' faults. The arrogance and certainty of youth often mellows into humble wisdom. The Buddha taught that compassion and wisdom are inseparable. True wisdom naturally expresses as compassion, and deep compassion requires wisdom. Many older practitioners report that as their practice deepens, their hearts naturally open wider. They find themselves caring deeply for others' welfare, wanting to help, feeling genuine joy in others' happiness. This isn't sentimentality or weakness. The Buddha distinguished between compassion and what we might call idiotic compassion, trying to help in ways that actually harm. Wise compassion understands boundaries, accepts that we can't solve all problems, and offers help that truly benefits rather than enables destructive patterns. This discrimination usually requires the experiential wisdom that comes with age. Sixth, old age provides opportunities for legacy through teaching and mentoring. The Buddha didn't expect everyone to become a monastic renunciant. He understood that lay people could practice deeply while remaining engaged with family and society. One way older lay people served was through teaching younger generations, not just formally, but through example and conversation. In the Mangala Sutta, the Buddha lists association with the wise as one of life's greatest blessings. Older practitioners who had walked the path for decades become valuable guides for those earlier in the journey. Their stories of how practice helped them through difficulties, their insights gained through long experience, their embodiment of Buddhist values, all these serve the Dharma in ways that books and lectures cannot. The Buddha established a culture of respect for elders within the Sangha. Monks and nuns were seated and honored according to their years of ordination. This wasn't empty formality. It reflected the understanding that those who had practiced longer had accumulated wisdom worth honoring and learning from. Seventh, the reduced sensory acuity and energy of old age can actually support meditation practice. While this might seem a strange benefit, many meditation masters have noted it. The intense passions and sensory attractions of youth can be obstacles to deep concentration. The naturally reduced intensity of old age can make it easier to turn attention inward. The Buddha didn't teach that we should destroy or suppress our senses. Rather, he taught wise relationship with sensory experience, enjoying pleasant experiences without clinging, enduring unpleasant experiences without aversion, understanding that all sensory experiences are impermanent and therefore cannot provide lasting satisfaction. For older practitioners whose senses have naturally dulled, the attraction of sensory pleasures often lessens. Food may not taste as intense, making it easier to eat moderately. Sexual desire may diminish, reducing that powerful distraction. Even physical pain, while challenging, can become an object of meditation, teaching patience and equanimity. Eighth, confronting the limitations of old age can catalyze profound insight into non-self. When we can no longer do things we once did easily, when the body no longer obeys our will, when memory fails and energy wanes, these experiences directly confront the illusion of control and the fiction of a permanent self. Young people often feel omnipotent, believing they can accomplish anything through effort and will. This confidence serves certain purposes, but also creates delusion. Older people know through direct experience that we're not in complete control, that the body has its own nature, that circumstances sometimes defeat our best efforts. This experiential knowledge of non-control can lead to surrender, not defeatist resignation, but wise acceptance of how things actually are.
While the Buddha taught that old age offers unique opportunities, he never denied its challenges. Let us examine these challenges honestly and explore the Buddha's teachings for working with them skillfully. Challenge 1. Physical pain and illness. Perhaps the most obvious challenge of aging is increased physical suffering. Bodies wear out, joints deteriorate, chronic conditions develop, pain becomes a frequent companion. The Buddha experienced this himself. He suffered from severe back pain in his later years, yet it didn't prevent him from teaching or practicing. The Buddha made a crucial distinction between physical pain and mental suffering. In the Salata Sutta, or Arrow Sutta, he teaches that when an untrained person experiences physical pain, they compound it with mental anguish, worrying about the pain, resenting it, fearing it will never end, feeling sorry for themselves. This is like being struck by a second arrow after the first. But the trained practitioner, the Buddha teaches, experiences only the physical pain, the first arrow, without adding the second arrow of mental suffering. They feel the physical sensation fully, but don't create a narrative of victimhood around it. They don't ask, "Why me?" They don't rage against reality. They simply experience the sensation with equanimity. This doesn't mean Buddhist practitioners don't treat medical conditions or take pain medication when appropriate. The Buddha was quite practical about healthcare. He allowed monks to use medicines, seek medical treatment, and take care of their bodies. What he taught against was the mental proliferation and emotional reactivity that multiplies suffering. Meditation practice profoundly changes our relationship with physical pain. Numerous studies have now confirmed what contemplatives have known for millennia. Mindfulness meditation reduces pain perception and suffering, even when the physical stimulus remains unchanged. How does this work? When we observe pain mindfully, we discover it's not a solid, unchanging block of sensation. It pulses and flows. It has areas of greater and lesser intensity. It changes moment to moment. The pain we think we're experiencing is actually our mental resistance to sensation, plus fear of future pain, plus memory of past pain, plus identification with pain as happening to me. When we strip away these mental elaborations and simply feel the raw sensation, suffering decreases dramatically. Many elderly Buddhist practitioners report that their meditation practice transformed their relationship with chronic pain. Instead of being tormented by it, they observe it with curiosity and compassion. Some even report that intense pain became a catalyst for deep meditative states, as it provided a strong object for concentration and investigation. The Buddha also taught the practice of metta, or loving kindness toward our own suffering bodies. We can mentally offer phrases like, "May I be free from suffering," "May I be at peace," "May I meet my pain with compassion." This practice prevents the self-hatred and resentment that often arises when our bodies fail to perform as we wish. Challenge 2: Cognitive decline. Perhaps even more feared than physical deterioration is mental decline. Memory problems, reduced processing speed, difficulty learning new things, or in severe cases, dementia and Alzheimer's disease. These strike at our sense of self in ways physical ailments don't. The Buddhist teaching on non-self becomes especially relevant here. If we've spent our lives identifying with our thoughts, memories, and mental capabilities, cognitive decline feels like the destruction of who we are. But if we've cultivated understanding that we are not our thoughts, that awareness itself is deeper than mental content, then even cognitive changes can be met with more equanimity. Consider this profound question the Buddha posed. If you are your thoughts, what are you when you're not thinking? If you are your memories, what are you in deep sleep when no memories arise? If you are your mental capabilities, what are you when those capabilities change? These questions point to something deeper than thought, pure awareness itself, the knowing capacity that remains regardless of what is known. Advanced Buddhist meditation often involves resting in this pure awareness, this consciousness that exists prior to and independent of mental content. Practitioners who have trained in this way report that even when memory fails and thinking becomes difficult, this basic awareness remains. They are still present, still conscious, still themselves at the deepest level, even if the content of consciousness has changed. That said, the Buddha clearly valued mental clarity and emphasized practices that maintain it. Meditation itself is perhaps the best preventative for cognitive decline. Recent neuroscience research has confirmed that regular meditation practice increases gray matter density, particularly in areas associated with memory and executive function, maintains cognitive function well into old age, and may even prevent or slow dementia. Studies have shown that long-term meditators show significantly less age-related brain atrophy than non-meditators. The hippocampus, crucial for memory formation, tends to shrink with age, but meditators show preservation of hippocampal volume. The prefrontal cortex, involved in planning and decision-making, similarly benefits from regular practice. The mechanisms are becoming clearer. Meditation reduces stress hormones like cortisol that damage brain cells. It increases BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic, which promotes neuroplasticity and the growth of new neurons. It improves blood flow to the brain. It may reduce inflammation, which contributes to neurodegeneration. It enhances the brain's default mode network, involved in self-referential processing and maintaining a sense of continuity. Beyond the neuroscience, Buddhist practice offers specific mental training that maintains cognitive health. The concentration required in meditation exercises attention muscles. Mindfulness practice strengthens working memory. Analytical meditation on teachings engages reasoning and comprehension. Visualization practices in some Buddhist traditions provide complex mental exercise. Memorizing and reciting texts, traditional in many Buddhist cultures, provides excellent cognitive training. For those experiencing mild cognitive decline, the Buddha would likely recommend adapting practice to current capabilities rather than abandoning it. If complex analytical meditation becomes difficult, simple practices like breath awareness or loving kindness may remain accessible and powerfully beneficial. If sitting meditation becomes challenging due to physical or mental reasons, walking meditation or listening to teachings might substitute. The key is maintaining some form of regular practice, even if it's simpler than what you once did. A practitioner who meditated for hours daily might reduce to 20 minutes. Someone who memorized long suttas might work with shorter passages. Someone who engaged in complex visualization might practice simple breath awareness. The form matters less than the continuity. Moreover, the Buddha taught practices specifically suited for those with reduced mental capacity. Reciting simple phrases, Buddha with each breath, may I be at peace, or the name of Amitabha Buddha in Poor Land traditions, these practices remain accessible even to those with significant cognitive impairment. The Buddha taught that ethical conduct also supports mental clarity in old age. A life lived without major regrets, without guilt from harmful actions, creates the conditions for a peaceful mind. Conversely, unresolved ethical issues often torment elderly people, creating anxiety and confusion that compound natural cognitive changes. Guilt, shame, and remorse are exhausting mental states. They consume cognitive resources, create stress, and disturb peace of mind. An elderly person burdened by memories of harm they caused, relationships they damaged, or opportunities for kindness they missed, often experience more mental confusion and agitation. The mind cannot rest when troubled by unresolved moral injury. But someone who has lived ethically, who has repaired harms when possible, who has forgiven themselves and others, enters old age with a clear conscience. This clarity itself supports cognitive health. The mind can rest, can be present, can engage with the moment rather than being dragged into regretful rumination about the past. This teaching has practical implications. Part of preparing for wise aging involves ethical completion, apologizing where we've caused harm, making amends where possible, forgiving ourselves for imperfections, and committing to harmlessness going forward. This work pays dividends in mental clarity and peace. For family members caring for those with severe cognitive decline, the Buddhist teachings on compassion, patience, and non-self offer profound support. Recognizing that your loved one with dementia is not choosing their condition, that they're experiencing the results of impersonal physical processes, can help caregivers respond with kindness rather than frustration. When someone with dementia asks the same question repeatedly, or doesn't recognize you, or behaves in ways.
Challenge 3. Loss and grief. Old age inevitably brings loss. Spouses die. Friends pass away, children move away, beloved pets depart, familiar places change beyond recognition, capabilities we took for granted disappear. Loss upon loss accumulates, creating what some elderly people describe as a cascade of grief. The Buddha taught extensively on grief and loss. His core message, grief arises from attachment and the delusion of permanence. When we cling to people, places, and conditions, believing they'll remain forever, we set ourselves up for devastating grief when change inevitably comes. In the Piyayatika Sutta, a father approaches the Buddha after losing his young son. Overcome with grief, he has lost his mind with sorrow. The Buddha teaches him, "From those dear and beloved, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are born. From those not dear and not beloved, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are not born." This sounds harsh at first hearing. Is the Buddha saying we shouldn't love? Not at all. The Buddha is pointing to a subtler truth. It's not love itself that causes grief, but the quality of clinging and delusion that often accompanies love. We can love deeply without the grasping quality that says, "This must never change." We can cherish someone completely while understanding they are not ours to keep forever. This is the difference between attachment and love. But the Buddha didn't teach that we should become cold and unloving to avoid grief. Rather, he taught a different way of loving, one that cherishes deeply while understanding impermanence, that connects intimately while respecting separateness, that cares profoundly while accepting change. This teaching becomes testable in old age. The elderly practitioner who has cultivated this wise love still feels sadness at loss, but not the crushing, destabilizing grief of someone who believed their loved one was permanent. They miss the person genuinely, the absence is real and painful, but they don't feel that reality has betrayed them. They don't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" as if they were supposed to be exempt from loss. They understand that separation is part of love's contract in this impermanent world. There's a beautiful teaching in the Therigatha, verses of enlightened Buddhist nuns, where several elderly women describe losing children, husbands, and parents. Their grief is acknowledged and honored, but it doesn't destroy them. They use their understanding of impermanence and their meditation practice to work with grief skillfully, eventually transforming it into deeper compassion and wisdom. The Buddha also taught that contemplating our loved one's impermanence while they're still alive actually deepens appreciation and reduces future grief. This might seem morbid or pessimistic, but practitioners report the opposite effect. When we truly understand that this conversation with our spouse might be our last, we show up more fully. When we recognize that our grandchild will not remain young forever, we savor the present moment rather than taking it for granted. In the Maranasati Sutta, on death contemplation, the Buddha teaches monks to reflect, "I could die today, my teacher could die today, my parents could die today. Those I love could die today." This isn't meant to create anxiety, but presence. It cuts through complacency and habitual half-attention, bringing us into vivid awareness of each moment's preciousness. Many elderly practitioners report that their years of contemplating impermanence and death prepared them for actual losses when they came. The contemplation wasn't just intellectual, it was training, developing capacity to meet loss with some degree of equanimity and grace. When grief arrived, they had tools to work with it, meditation to stabilize the mind, understanding of impermanence to contextualize the loss, self-compassion to be gentle with themselves, community support to avoid isolation. After loss occurs, the Buddha recommended specific practices. Metta meditation towards ourselves and others supports healing. When we're grieving, we especially need kindness from others and from ourselves. Sending loving kindness to our own hurting hearts acknowledges the pain while offering comfort. Extending loving kindness to the deceased honors the relationship and helps maintain connection in a new form. Contemplating impermanence helps us accept what cannot be changed. Yes, this person died. Yes, this is incredibly sad. And yes, this is the nature of existence. Fighting against this reality only adds suffering to suffering. Acceptance doesn't mean we don't care. It means we stop arguing with what has already happened. Understanding that our grief honors the relationship and will naturally transform over time provides patience with the process. Grief isn't something to get over quickly or suppress. It's a natural response to loss, a testament to love. But the Buddha taught that like all conditioned states, grief changes. Its intensity lessens. We adjust to the new reality. Life eventually calls us back to engagement. The Buddha never taught that grief is wrong or should be suppressed. In the Kema Sutta, when a disciple loses her young son and comes to the Buddha in agony, he doesn't tell her to stop grieving or that her grief is a spiritual failing. Instead, he acknowledges her suffering and gently guides her towards understanding, not by denying her feelings, but by helping her see the universal nature of loss. He takes her through the city, asking at each house whether anyone has died there. She discovers that every single household has experienced death. Some have lost parents, others children, others spouses, others friends. Death has touched every family without exception. This universal perspective doesn't eliminate her grief, but it shifts it. She feels less isolated, less singled out by fate. Her personal tragedy is contextualized within the shared human experience of mortality. Moreover, the Buddha taught that grief can become a doorway to compassion. When we've experienced the searing pain of loss, we naturally empathize with others' grief. We understand what people are going through when they lose someone. We can offer genuine comfort rather than platitudes. Our broken, open heart becomes a source of connection and compassion. Many elderly people who've experienced significant losses report that their grief transformed them, made them kinder, more patient, more appreciative, more present. They wouldn't have chosen the losses, but they recognize how those experiences deepened their humanity and spiritual understanding. Challenge 4: Isolation and Loneliness. Modern society often isolates the elderly. Extended families fragment, retirement removes workplace connections, reduced mobility limits social engagement, friends die or become incapacitated. Many elderly people report profound loneliness as one of their greatest sources of suffering. The Buddha deeply valued Sangha, spiritual community. He called it one of the 3 jewels or refuges, alongside Buddha and Dharma. He understood that humans are social beings who suffer in isolation. Throughout his teaching career, he emphasized the importance of spiritual friendship and community support. For elderly practitioners, maintaining connection with a Sangha becomes especially important. Whether a formal meditation group, a temple community, or simply friends who share interest in the Dharma, these connections provide both social contact and spiritual support. The Buddha also taught practices that work with loneliness skillfully. Metta practice involves mentally sending loving kindness to all beings, creating a felt sense of connection even when physically alone. Contemplating our interdependence with all life reminds us that we're never truly separate. Understanding that loneliness is a universal human experience rather than a personal failing reduces shame and self-pity. Moreover, the Buddha taught that developing comfort with solitude is spiritually valuable. He himself spent extensive periods in solitary retreat and encouraged his disciples to do likewise. There's a crucial difference between loneliness, painful, involuntary isolation, and solitude, peaceful, chosen aloneness. Through meditation practice, we can transform experiences of loneliness into opportunities for solitude. When we're at peace with ourselves, when we've developed rich inner life through meditation and contemplation, we suffer less from lack of external companionship. We become what the Buddha called lamps unto ourselves, finding refuge in our own awareness rather than depending entirely on external conditions for contentment. Challenge 5. Loss of purpose and meaning. Many people derive their sense of meaning and purpose from work, raising children, or other activities that typically cease or diminish in old age. Retirement can feel like falling off a cliff into purposelessness. The question, "What am I for?" can become agonizing. The Buddha taught that true purpose isn't found in external roles, but in the cultivation of wisdom and compassion, and the reduction of suffering, both our own and others. These purposes don't end with retirement. If anything, they become more accessible when we're freed from other
Part 5. Preparing for a good death. The Buddha taught that conscious preparation for death is one of the wisest things any person can do, but it becomes especially relevant in old age. Let us explore his teachings on dying well. First, the Buddha emphasized completing unfinished business. This includes practical matters, writing wills, organizing affairs, communicating final wishes, but more importantly, it includes emotional and relational completion. Have you said what needs to be said to the people you love? Have you forgiven those who harmed you? Have you apologized to those you've harmed? Have you released grudges and resentments? These questions become urgent in old age. The Buddha taught in the Anguttara Nikaya that one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is freedom from remorse. A person dying with major regrets experiences profound suffering. But someone who has lived ethically, repaired relationships when possible, and made peace with what cannot be changed can die peacefully. This doesn't mean we must achieve perfection or resolve every issue. That's impossible. But it means doing what we reasonably can to complete the relational and ethical business of our lives. Many elderly Buddhist practitioners report that this process itself becomes profoundly healing and meaningful. Second, the Buddha taught the importance of letting go of possessions and attachments. This is both practical and spiritual. Practically, releasing attachment to property and things makes the dying process easier for both the dying person and their survivors. Spiritually, it's an exercise in non-clinging that prepares consciousness for the ultimate letting go. Some elderly practitioners intentionally downsize, giving away possessions they won't need, simplifying their lives. This isn't about deprivation, but about freedom. Each thing we release is one less anchor to worldly existence, one less thing to worry about, one less attachment to reinforce the illusion of permanence. The Buddha himself modeled this, living with only minimal possessions, robes, a bowl, perhaps a few small items. While he didn't require lay followers to be as renunciant, he taught that reducing attachment to possessions supports peace of mind at every life stage, especially when approaching death. Third, the Buddha taught specific meditation practices for the dying. The most emphasized is mindfulness of breathing. This practice serves multiple purposes. It anchors attention in the present moment, calming anxiety about the future. It provides an object of concentration that remains accessible even as physical and mental faculties decline. It attunes us to the basic life process, helping us accept the cessation of breath when it comes. For those who have practiced loving-kindness meditation throughout their lives, maintaining this practice while dying creates beneficial mental states. The Buddha taught that dying with a mind filled with love and compassion creates favorable conditions for whatever comes next. Contemplation of the Buddhist teachings, particularly on impermanence, non-self, and the nature of suffering, also supports the dying process. These teachings remind us that what's happening is natural, that we are not this body, that death is a transformation rather than an ending. Fourth, the Buddha emphasized the importance of spiritual companionship during the dying process. In traditional Buddhist cultures, dying people are often surrounded by practitioners chanting suttas, offering loving kindness, and reminding them of the teachings. This support helps the dying person maintain wholesome mental states. Even in modern hospitals and care facilities, this support can be provided. Family members can read teachings, play recordings of chanting, speak of the Buddha's wisdom. They can practice meditation in the room, creating an atmosphere of peace. They can offer reassurance. You are loved. You lived a good life. It's okay to let go. May you be at peace. The Buddha taught that the mental state at death significantly influences what follows. While he cautioned against believing we can control everything through willpower, he clearly taught that a peaceful, aware death is preferable to a confused, fearful one. Supporting our loved ones to die consciously becomes an act of profound compassion. Fifth, the Buddha taught acceptance of the dying process. Modern medicine can sometimes extend life, and the Buddha would certainly support appropriate medical care. But he would also teach that there comes a time to accept death rather than fighting desperately against the inevitable. This is a delicate issue requiring wisdom and discernment. The Buddha's middle way suggests neither giving up prematurely nor clinging to life through extraordinary means that only prolong suffering. Each situation requires individual assessment. What helps is returning to core principles. Is this treatment reducing suffering or prolonging it? Is the person still able to practice and find meaning, or has existence become mere biological function? What would the dying person want if they could express themselves clearly? The Buddha taught that death with dignity means dying consciously, surrounded by love, at peace with the process. Sometimes aggressive medical intervention supports this. Sometimes it prevents it. The wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Sixth, the Buddha encouraged viewing death as the ultimate spiritual teaching and opportunity. Just as he used the awareness of death to motivate his spiritual search, we can use our actual dying process as a profound practice. In Tibetan Buddhism, this approach is highly developed. Advanced practitioners view death as the moment of greatest potential, when consciousness briefly experiences the clear light of reality before moving on. They train throughout life to recognize and rest in this clear light at death, seeing it as an opportunity for liberation. While such advanced practice may be beyond most people, the basic principle applies to all. Death can be approached as a sacred passage, a final meditation, an ultimate letting go. This perspective transforms death from a feared enemy into a profound teacher and even a friend.
Part 6. The Dignity and Wisdom of Elders. The Buddha taught a vision of old age quite different from modern Western culture's often dismissive attitude toward the elderly. In the Buddha's view, properly lived old age represents the culmination of human development, the flowering of wisdom. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha addresses this directly. Long is the night to the wakeful, long is the league to the weary, long is the round of existence to the foolish who know not the true law. But brief as a finger snap is the time of those who have realized the truth. This suggests that the length or difficulty of life depends not on chronological age, but on spiritual understanding. The Buddha established within the Sangha a culture of profound respect for elders.
Monks and nuns were honored according to their years of ordination. Younger monastics served older ones, not out of arbitrary hierarchy, but from recognition that those who had practiced longer had accumulated wisdom worthy of respect and emulation. This wasn't about mere politeness, it reflected a fundamental understanding. Wisdom requires time. While young people can certainly have insights and abilities, the deep, lived wisdom that comes from decades of practice, from weathering life's storms, from seeing patterns over long time horizons, this wisdom belongs especially to elders. What characterizes wise old age in the Buddhist view? Several qualities stand out. First, perspective. The wise elder has seen enough of life to recognize patterns. They know that most crises pass, that fashions and trends come and go, that what seems desperately important today will often seem trivial tomorrow. This perspective cultivates equanimity, the precious ability to remain balanced amid life's changes. The Buddha valued equanimity as one of the highest spiritual attainments. It's not indifference or cold detachment, but rather a warm, engaged balance, caring deeply while not being thrown by every shift in circumstances. This quality typically develops over decades and represents one of old age's greatest gifts. Second, acceptance. Young people often rage against reality, insisting things should be different than they are. This creates immense suffering. Wise old elders have learned through countless experiences of reality refusing to conform to their preferences that acceptance is the path to peace. Acceptance doesn't mean passive resignation or approving of everything. The Buddha distinguished between acceptance of what is, which brings peace, and acquiescence to what's harmful, which contradicts compassion. Wise elders accept the realities they cannot change while still working skillfully with what they can influence. Third, simplicity. The wise old elder has learned what matters and what doesn't. They've experimented with many sources of happiness and seen which deliver lasting satisfaction and which disappoint. This experiential knowledge naturally leads to simplification, letting go of unnecessary complications, focusing on essentials. The Buddha taught that happiness comes not from adding more, but from wanting less. Young people often resist this teaching, believing they haven't experienced enough. But elders who have experienced much often confirm it through their own observation. They've learned that a simple meal eaten with gratitude satisfies more than an extravagant feast consumed with greed. Fourth, compassion. Many elderly people report that their hearts have grown softer and more open with age. Having suffered much themselves, they naturally empathize with others' suffering. Having made countless mistakes, they judge others less harshly. Having experienced kindness from others during difficult times, they want to offer such kindness forward. The Buddha taught compassion and wisdom develop together. True wisdom naturally expresses as compassion. As we understand the suffering inherent in existence and the delusions that perpetuate it, we can't help but feel compassion for all beings trapped in confusion. This compassion often deepens naturally with age if we remain open-hearted. Fifth, humor. Wise old elders often display remarkable humor, especially about themselves and life's absurdities. This isn't flippancy or denial, but rather the lightness that comes from perspective. When you've lived long enough, you see the cosmic joke of existence, how seriously we take ourselves, how much we worry about things that don't matter, how desperately we cling to what we cannot keep. The Buddha himself displayed humor, though the texts don't emphasize it much. But many Buddhist teachers throughout history have combined profound wisdom with delightful humor. This combination reflects deep understanding. Yes, suffering is real and worthy of serious attention, but reality is also fundamentally playful, and clinging to solemnity is just another form of attachment. Sixth, generosity. The wise old elder, having accumulated experience and understanding, naturally wants to share.
This generosity expresses itself in many ways: teaching when appropriate, listening deeply when that's what's needed, offering material help when possible, simply being present as an example of how to age consciously. The Buddha taught dana, or generosity, as the foundation of spiritual practice. For elderly people who may not have much material wealth to give, the generosity of wisdom, attention, and presence becomes especially valuable. A grandparent's patient listening, an elder's perspective on a young person's crisis, a senior practitioner's hard-won insights, these are precious gifts. The Buddha also taught that elders benefit from receiving generosity. Allowing younger people to help us, to offer service, to demonstrate their care, actually serves them by giving them opportunities to practice generosity. False pride that refuses all help robs others of this opportunity. Wise acceptance of appropriate help honors the interdependence the Buddha taught. Seventh, freedom. Wise old elders often display remarkable freedom from others' opinions, from social conventions that no longer serve, from the fear of looking foolish. They've learned that life is too short to waste on pretense and image management. The Buddha taught that much of our suffering comes from concern about how we appear to others. We perform elaborate social dances, hiding our true selves, exhausting ourselves to maintain facades. Wise old elders have often let go of this burden. They say what they actually think, act according to their values rather than others' expectations, and live authentically. This freedom doesn't mean rudeness or insensitivity. Wise elders remain ethically grounded, but within ethical bounds, they've liberated themselves from the prison of others' judgments. This liberation itself inspires others and demonstrates what's possible.
Having explored the Buddha's philosophical teachings on aging, let us turn to practical guidance for aging wisely according to Buddhist principles. First, maintain a daily meditation practice. The Buddha emphasized consistent practice over dramatic but irregular efforts. Even 10 or 20 minutes of daily meditation provides enormous benefits for elderly practitioners: reduced stress and anxiety, better sleep, better emotional regulation, maintained cognitive function, deeper peace and contentment, preparation for death. The specific meditation technique matters less than consistency. Breath awareness, loving kindness, body scanning, contemplation of teachings, all these serve. The key is making meditation as regular as eating or sleeping, a non-negotiable part of daily life. For those new to meditation in old age, it's never too late to begin. The Buddha taught people of all ages and specifically stated that the benefits of practice are available regardless of when we start. An 80-year-old beginning meditation still has time to develop profound peace and insight. Second, cultivate gratitude. The Buddha taught that gratitude is one of life's greatest blessings. Grateful people age more happily than ungrateful ones, regardless of objective circumstances. Gratitude is a skill we can develop through practice. Third, maintain ethical conduct. The Buddha's 5 precepts provide clear guidance, refraining from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, false speech, and intoxication. These aren't arbitrary rules, but descriptions of how to live harmlessly and peacefully. For elderly people, ethical conduct provides several benefits: freedom from remorse and guilt, better relationships with family and community, a peaceful mind that supports meditation, good preparation for death. Someone who has lived ethically for decades enters old age with confidence and peace. Someone who has caused much harm often experiences tormenting guilt and fear. But even those who made many mistakes earlier in life can benefit from ethical conduct now. The Buddha taught that it's never too late to change, to stop causing harm, to begin living according to wisdom and compassion. Each ethical choice we make creates good karma and purifies consciousness. Fourth, stay connected with spiritual community. The Buddha valued Sangha alongside Buddha and Dharma as one of the 3 refuges. Community provides encouragement during difficult times, accountability for practice, opportunities for service and connection, exposure to teachings and different perspectives, practical support when needed. For elderly people who may have limited mobility, online sanghas now offer wonderful opportunities. Video calls, online meditation groups, recorded teachings. Technology has made spiritual community more accessible than ever, but in-person connection, when possible, remains especially valuable. The Buddha taught that spiritual friendship is not a small part of the path, but the entire path. We become like those we spend time with. Surrounding ourselves with people who value wisdom, ethics, and compassion supports our own development of these qualities. Fifth, loving kindness toward yourself. The Buddha taught that we should extend the same kindness to ourselves that we offer to others. For elderly people dealing with failing bodies and minds, self-compassion becomes crucial. Instead of hating your aging body, thank it for decades of service. Instead of cursing your forgetful mind, appreciate it for all it has remembered. Instead of despairing over what you can no longer do, celebrate what you still can do. This isn't delusional positive thinking, it's realistic appreciation. Your body is remarkable, having supported you for decades. Your mind has accomplished amazing things, and you can still do much, even if not everything you once could. The Buddha taught that self-hatred never leads to awakening. Only self-compassion combined with wise understanding creates the conditions for transformation. Sixth, simplify your life. The Buddha praised simple living and warned against accumulation. For elderly people, simplification offers many benefits: less to manage and maintain, reduced attachment to possessions, easier transition at death, clearer priorities, more peace of mind. Consider what you actually need versus what you're keeping from habit or clinging. Give away things you don't use to people who will appreciate them. Create space and lightness in your environment. Focus on quality over quantity in what you keep. This process itself becomes a spiritual practice, an exercise in letting go, in recognizing impermanence, in distinguishing what matters from what doesn't. Seventh, stay physically active within your capabilities. The Buddha taught the middle way between extreme asceticism and indulgence. For elderly people, this means staying as active as possible without pushing destructively. Walking, gentle yoga, tai chi, swimming, these activities maintain physical health, support mental clarity, and can become meditation practices themselves. The Buddha encouraged monks to walk in meditation and taught that physical movement supports spiritual practice. At the same time, the middle way means accepting limitations. Trying to exercise like a 25-year-old when you're 75 creates suffering. Finding appropriate activity for your current capabilities honors wisdom. Eighth, stay connected with spiritual community. Jin Manda taught spiritual friendship is not a small part of the path, but the entire path. We become like those we spend time with. Surrounding ourselves with people who value wisdom, ethics, and compassion supports our own development of these qualities. Fifth, practice loving kindness toward yourself. The Buddha taught that we should extend the same kindness to ourselves that we offer to others. For elderly people dealing with failing bodies and minds, self-compassion becomes crucial. Instead of hating your aging body, thank it for decades of service. Instead of cursing your forgetful mind, appreciate it for all it has remembered. Instead of despairing over what you can no longer do, celebrate what you still can do. This isn't delusional positive thinking, it's realistic appreciation. Your body is remarkable, having supported you for decades. Your mind has accomplished amazing things, and you can still do much, even if not everything you once could. The Buddha taught that self-hatred never leads to awakening. Only self-compassion combined with wise understanding creates the conditions for transformation. Sixth, simplify your life. The Buddha praised simple living and warned against accumulation.
For elderly people, simplification offers many benefits: less to manage and maintain, reduced attachment to possessions, easier transition at death, clearer priorities, more peace of mind. Consider what you actually need versus what you're keeping from habit or clinging. Give away things you don't use to people who will appreciate them. Create space and lightness in your environment. Focus on quality over quantity in what you keep. This process itself becomes a spiritual practice, an exercise in letting go, in recognizing impermanence, in distinguishing what matters from what doesn't. Seventh, stay physically active within your capabilities. The Buddha taught the middle way between extreme asceticism and indulgence. For elderly people, this means staying as active as possible without pushing destructively. Walking, gentle yoga, tai chi, swimming, these activities maintain physical health, support mental clarity, and can become meditation practices themselves. The Buddha encouraged monks to walk in meditation and taught that physical movement supports spiritual practice. At the same time, the middle way means accepting limitations. Trying to exercise like a 25-year-old when you're 75 creates suffering. Finding appropriate activity for your current capabilities honors wisdom. Eighth, stay connected with spiritual community. Jin Manda taught spiritual friendship is not a small part of the path, but the entire path. We become like those we spend time with. Surrounding ourselves with people who value wisdom, ethics, and compassion supports our own development of these qualities. Fifth, practice loving kindness toward yourself. The Buddha taught that we should extend the same kindness to ourselves that we offer to others. For elderly people dealing with failing bodies and minds, self-compassion becomes crucial. Instead of hating your aging body, thank it for decades of service. Instead of cursing your forgetful mind, appreciate it for all it has remembered. Instead of despairing over what you can no longer do, celebrate what you still can do. This isn't delusional positive thinking, it's realistic appreciation. Your body is remarkable, having supported you for decades. Your mind has accomplished amazing things, and you can still do much, even if not everything you once could. The Buddha taught that self-hatred never leads to awakening. Only self-compassion combined with wise understanding creates the conditions for transformation. Sixth, simplify your life. The Buddha praised simple living and warned against accumulation. For elderly people, simplification offers many benefits: less to manage and maintain, reduced attachment to possessions, easier transition at death, clearer priorities, more peace of mind.
We have journeyed deeply through the Buddha's teachings on old age and aging wisely. Let us now gather the essential insights and close with inspiration for the path ahead. The Buddha saw in the encounter with an elderly person not cause for despair, but motivation for awakening. Old age confronts us with truths we often avoid in youth: impermanence, the inevitability of loss, the inability of external conditions to provide lasting security, the precious brevity of life. These truths, properly understood, become liberating rather than depressing. They clarify priorities, they motivate practice, they inspire us to live fully, love deeply, and awaken thoroughly while we still can. The Buddha taught that every stage of life offers unique gifts and challenges. Old age is no exception. Its challenges are real: physical pain and deterioration, cognitive changes, loss and grief, isolation, confronting mortality. But its gifts are equally real and perhaps even greater: natural renunciation, deepened wisdom, expanded compassion, freedom from many of youth's compulsions, time for practice, and proximity to the ultimate teacher, death itself. The difference between old age as suffering and old age as flowering lies not in external circumstances, but in internal relationship to those circumstances. Two people with identical health issues, identical losses, identical limitations can have radically different experiences based on their understanding and practice. One person clinging to youth, resisting change, identifying with the body and mind, defining worth through achievement and appearance, will experience old age as a terrible diminishment, a long, slow dying to be endured. Another person, having cultivated wisdom and compassion, understanding impermanence and non-self, appreciating the preciousness of each moment, maintaining regular practice, will experience old age as a rich, meaningful phase, perhaps the most spiritually fruitful time of life. The Buddha offers us the tools and teachings to choose the second path. These tools include meditation practice that trains the mind and opens the heart, ethical conduct that prevents remorse and creates peace, wisdom teachings that reveal the true nature of reality, community that supports and inspires, and contemplation practices that prepare us for death. But teachings alone accomplish nothing. The Buddha famously said, "I can only show you the way, you must walk it yourself." The practices must be practiced, the teachings must be applied, wisdom must be lived, not just intellectually understood. For those of you who are elderly or approaching old age, I offer this encouragement. You have not missed your opportunity for practice and awakening. In fact, you may be in the most advantageous position you've ever been in. The hindrances that troubled you in youth, ambition, sensual desire, restlessness, may have naturally diminished. The wisdom that comes from decades of life experience is yours. The awareness of mortality that sharpens practice is immediate and real for you. Start where you are. Begin with what you can do. If you can sit for only 5 minutes in meditation, sit for 5 minutes. If you can practice kindness toward one person today, practice toward that one person. If you can let go of one attachment, let go of that one attachment. Each small step matters. Each moment of practice creates positive karma and conditions further practice. For those of you who are young or middle-aged, I offer this reminder. You too are aging. Every moment you move toward old age, illness, and death. This is not morbid, it's simply true. Will you ignore this truth and squander your precious time, or will you let it wake you up to what matters? The practices that will serve you in old age are best begun now. The meditation skills that will help you face death with equanimity require years of development. The ethical conduct that creates a peaceful old age begins with choices you make today. The wisdom that flowers in age has roots planted in youth. Moreover, how you treat elderly people now reflects how you understand aging and likely predicts how you'll experience it yourself. If you see the elderly as burdensome, useless, or irrelevant, you plant seeds of suffering for your own old age. If you honor elders, learn from their wisdom, and care for them compassionately, you plant seeds of dignity and meaning. The Buddha taught the law of karma. Actions have consequences. How we live now shapes what we experience later. This applies to aging as much as anything else. For those caring for elderly loved ones, the Buddhist teachings offer guidance and comfort. Your service is sacred. Your patience and kindness create enormous positive karma. Your presence during your loved one's final chapter of life is a precious gift both to them and to yourself. But remember also to practice self-compassion. Caregiving is difficult. You will feel frustrated, exhausted, resentful at times. These feelings don't make you a bad person. They make you human. Acknowledge them. Work with them skillfully, and keep returning to kindness when you can. The Buddha would remind you that you cannot control your loved one's experience. You can only offer support. You cannot prevent their aging, illness, or death. You can only be present with compassion. You cannot fix everything. You can only do your best with wisdom and love. As we close this teaching, I want to emphasize the Buddha's fundamental optimism about human potential. He taught that awakening is possible for all beings. Age is not a barrier, but potentially an aid. Physical deterioration does not prevent spiritual flowering. Even in the face of death, liberation remains accessible. The Buddha's final words to his disciples were, "Decay is inherent in all conditioned things. Work out your salvation with diligence." This teaching applies perfectly to aging. Yes, decay is inherent in these bodies and minds. That's the truth of impermanence. But awakening is possible. That's the good news of liberation. So work with diligence, practice consistently, live ethically, cultivate wisdom and compassion, let go of attachments, prepare consciously for death. Honor the precious opportunity of this human life, however many years remain. Old age need not be a tragedy. It can be a triumph, the culmination of a life well lived, the harvest of decades of practice, the doorway to liberation. Everything depends on how we meet it. The Buddha offers us the path. Countless practitioners throughout history have walked it successfully, aging wisely and dying consciously. Their example proves it's possible. Their teachings show us how. Now it's your turn. Whether you're 20 or 90, whether you've practiced for decades or are just beginning, this moment offers the opportunity to practice, to wake up, to live with wisdom and compassion. The Buddha taught that the past is gone and cannot be changed. The future hasn't arrived and cannot be controlled. But this present moment, this precious now, this is where we live, where we practice, where awakening happens. So return to this moment. Feel your breath. Notice your body. Open your heart. Let go of clinging. Meet reality as it is, with courage and compassion. This is the path the Buddha taught. This is how to age wisely. This is the way to transform old age from suffering to awakening. May all beings age with wisdom and grace. May all beings find peace in the face of change. May all beings awaken to their true nature, timeless and unborn, beyond aging and death. May you walk the path with confidence and joy, knowing that every step matters, that it's never too late, that awakening awaits. The Buddha's final teaching was a gesture. He held up a flower. When only one disciple smiled in understanding, the Buddha knew his teaching had been transmitted beyond words. What was transmitted? Perhaps this, that life is beautiful even in its impermanence, that each moment is precious precisely because it doesn't last, that awareness itself, the capacity to notice the flower, to smile, this awareness is our true nature, unchanging even as everything changes. As you age, as your body changes and your circumstances shift, this awareness remains. Return to it again and again. Rest in it. Trust it. This is what the Buddha taught about old age. Not that it's easy, but that it can be met with wisdom. Not that we can avoid pain, but that we can be free from suffering. Not that decay can be prevented, but that what we truly are never decays. Walk on, dear friends.
Thank you for watching this comprehensive teaching on what the Buddha taught about old age. If these teachings resonated with you, please share this video with someone who might benefit. May you age with grace, wisdom, and compassion. May you awaken to your true nature, beyond birth and death. Until we meet again, walk gently on the path. Subscribe for more Buddhist teachings. Share this wisdom with others. Comment your reflections below.